Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more.
All right. Barring any more technical difficulties, this is the Drink O'Clock Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Valincius, and I have the pleasure of having with me Joanne Fawcett. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much.
I'm excited to have you on. You're, we'll start with the easy stuff, right? Well,
Sure.
actually, technically, it's the hard stuff. It's you're a mother,
I am.
a grandmother
Yes.
of 3.
Yep.
You have multiple degrees.
Yes.
And you're an author, which I love authors.
Yes.
2 books.
2 books.
Excuse me. Midlife Magic, which was your first book, and The Prince Was Wrong, Leaving the Narcissist Behind. You got a lot of accolades.
Thank you. I've been busy.
We love that on the show. I'll tell you, mainly because mainly because it gives us a lot of talking points.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Now I always like to start with my guests because, other than meeting you technically 10 minutes ago,
Really?
I don't know anything about you, and I'm sure my listeners don't know your background either. So talk to me a little bit about your early years. I know you
Sure.
went through the ringer, right?
I did.
You went through 7 divorces.
Well, one committed suicide, and one technically we were not married, so 5 divorces.
5 divorces. So, you mentioned abuse, death, and also being a prison wife. So can you elaborate on your early years and
Sure.
some of those things that you went through to kind of get you to where we are here?
Sure. I grew up in a family of 4 kids. I'm number 3, so, middle child syndrome, I guess, but whatever. And we did a lot of camping and stuff as a family, nothing to, no fancy vacations or anything like that. I grew up in Southern California. We moved to Northern California my last 3 years of high school. Then my parents moved to Connecticut. Then I went to Utah for college for the first couple of years. And then I started getting married. And I was a Mormon. My family's not Mormon, but I was a Mormon for 30 years. I joined because of my best friend. Her family was Mormon. And I always grew up thinking, I want the happy little family, the white picket fence, the mom who has a million kids and gets to stay home. And, the husband goes and works because that's what you do, right? And that's what you thought in the 50s when I grew up. And, you watch Leave It to Beaver and you think, everybody's like that. Well, my family wasn't like that, and my marriages were never like that. And like I married 5 different Mormons, and I thought, well, if we're part of the same church, obviously we're going to be on the same page about everything, which, because we're human, we were not. And we didn't discuss a lot of the important things anyway. And you're not supposed to have sex before you get married, let alone live together before you get married. So that's, now I know that's a courting disaster. And we got married too quickly. All of those marriages, we got married too quickly. And the universe said, well, you only get 1 kid. I wanted 12. I got 1, which was fine. She's a great kid. And thank goodness if I'd had kids with every husband, I'd be the old woman in the shoe kind of person, if anybody remembers that nursery rhyme.
With a bunch of cats.
Well, I've had 3 at one time, but I'm down to 1. But yeah, my mom died and had 8 cats. So it's like, I don't want to be that person. Yeah, that was a lot of cats.
It's a lot of cats.
A lot of cats. So the different husbands were weird and mean in their own ways. Some were physically abusive. Some caused me financial hardship and bankruptcy. And some were just jerks and said a lot of mean things. And the last husband I was married to was not a Mormon. He's been in prison not his whole life. He just turned 71. He's been in he got arrested when he was 29 for something he didn't do. I believe that he didn't do it. He was also a military hero, so I have a lot of cool information about aliens and UFO stuff from him and his experiences in the military. I also got into, learning about fairies and witchcraft and all sorts of cool stuff thanks to him. We're no longer married because he is the narcissist that I wrote about in that book. But I was with him for 25 years, and I didn't realize he was a narcissist and that I should be standing up for myself until I'd been into it for 20 years. So it's like, hopefully anybody listening and cares about that stuff, don't wait 20 years to figure out that things aren't working. But anyway, it's like I have paranormal experiences, I have fairy experiences, I am a practicing witch. Being a prison wife is a whole life unto itself, and that was strange and weird, and I'll never do that again.
How did you meet?
We met through a roommate of mine that I had known from, we used to work together, and her husband's in prison, and she came home one day and said, I met this really nice guy, he's a friend of my husband's, he's visiting his mom, he's really charming, he's really smart, and immediately it's like, oh, smart, that would be a new kind of boyfriend for me, so I'll meet him. And we started writing, and then I got approved to visit, and we courted for 5 years, and, I thought everything was great, because he's this highly educated, got these great military experiences, he's lived many places around the world, and, he had all these great stories, and he's just so entertaining and charming. You don't see the creep, the jerky part, the mean stuff, unless you cross the line, even though you're not really crossing the line. The narcissism didn't really come out until you really just upended his agenda and said, oh, excuse me, my needs are not being met, and here's what they are. We courted for 5 years. We got married at the prison. Lovely little ceremony in a side room. It was hot. It was the end of July. It was hot, really hot. Our wedding cake was like 2 Hostess cupcakes smashed together. My daughter was 7 months pregnant, so she was really overheating, and I was so in love, and it was so wonderful, and everything was going to be great. Well, 20 something years later, things were not great. Anyway, so that's in a nutshell. And I started writing. I met somebody at a UFO conference once, and she said, well, when's your story coming out? And I said, well, I don't, his next report will be, no, yours. And I said, oh, you want me to write about me? Ew. And then I started just taking notes, because as a Mormon you work on family history, so I had a lot of biographical things written down because of church stuff, and then I started putting it together in a book, and I had journals so I could look up stuff about some of my exes, and I met number 7 when I was in my 40s, and I changed my life. I left the church just because I no longer needed it, and I decided I was exploring other spiritual things and just learning about other spiritual topics. There's way more out in the world available to me than what is in the tight-knit community of the church. And I started learning about all these other paths and these other things, and it's like I didn't go off the rail or whatever, but now I'm starting to drink a little, and oh boy, I could start cussing, and it's like I could have soda and tea, and nobody was going to ask me questions whether I was not following the health rules, and but again, I didn't, it's not like I started. Well, I was already dating him when I left the church, so it wasn't like I was going to go start dating and jumping into bed with a million guys, so that just wasn't going to happen. So, but it was, I changed my life radically in my 40s, because if you're a Mormon for 30 years, your lifestyle is this, and then to not be that's pretty cool. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have intuition. Oh, that's cool. I have a connection to animals and nature, and I'm seeing ghosts. Or I had forgotten that I had seen some or experienced them even when I was a Mormon. It's like, so I'm having these new experiences, and things are just changing, and now I'm seeing UFOs, and the fairies are real. And so I wrote that book about my marriages, and also how I have all these other cool experiences, and I'm on this new path. And then fast forward, a few more years, and then he and I split up, and my book editor from the first one goes, well, why don't you write about that, the narcissist? I go, I don't know. And then, I guess I can, because I started going to therapy, and again, changing my life, and using my witchy practices to like create and set my intentions for the life that I wanted to. And, that's all happening, and my life is wonderful, and the book was very cathartic and healing and part of my journey, and if I can help other people in that sucky situation, great. If not, it's a good, quick read, and, hey, you can look into somebody else's life. but it also shows that there's hope, People don't have to stay stuck. So, yeah.
I've interviewed a couple women who had written books about their lives with narcissists, and it's a pretty compelling read when you really kind of dig into it and all the things that you listen to, and it's very easy once you do that to identify.
Yes.
If you yourself are in a narcissistic relationship, but you hit on the Mormon thing. And I did want to talk a little bit about that because I'm familiar with some of the practices because I work in insurance and the company I work for is nationwide. So I actually deal with insurance people who are in Utah, and they're great people. We love them, but some of their stuff is pretty quirky. So I wanted to ask you, what was it like being a Mormon for 30 years? And what were some of the unique beliefs that either you had or that the culture has that maybe other people might not be familiar with?
That part's easy. Okay, let's see. And again, a lot of people see it as a cult. I never did. I just left. I never had any a lot of people who leave the church have a lot of trauma or abuse by leaders, whatever, and I never had any of that problem. It was just the crappy men in the church that I married. So, I mean, I don't know, Quirky's right. They do believe in a God. They believe in a Trinity, a God, Jesus, and of the Holy Spirit. And they believe that, you're supposed to get married to one person and hopefully stay married forever. And, if you live this really, really good life, and if you're sealed married in a temple, then, you have the possibility of, like, living with that person after you're both dead and, creating your own worlds and all this weird, cool stuff. And it's like, okay, whatever. And, they have the whole thing about Joseph Smith seeing an angel, which now now that I know about aliens, I don't necessarily think he saw an angel, but Joseph Smith saw an angel, and, he was talking to him about the golden plate. So you've got, the Mormons have like 2 extra sets of scriptures beyond the Bible. And, there's some pretty cool information in there about perhaps how, like, Native Americans and stuff came to, different history on how certain tribes, people came to the United States or South America that weren't there. How did all these people get to all these different places? So, they have some interesting takes on history, so that was pretty cool. There's the whole...
the undergarments, is
that's always
is unique.
Because the first time I got married, they were one piece, and that's just so uncomfortable, Yeah.
How are you supposed to pee in that?
There's a little opening. It's really uncomfortable. Thankfully, by the time I left all that, there were 2-piece, undergarment things, so it was more like regular underwear. But
they advanced. They
did advance, because I think way back in the olden days, it was like long sleeve and long pant. Oh my God! It was like, how can you wear that in the summer? Oh. Anyway.
If you showed ankle, man, you were showing it all.
Oh boy, am I risque now? So there's clothing standards. You're not supposed to wear sleeveless tops. I still don't wear a lot, but I'm also older. The skin. Anyway, old woman's skin on your arm. But, yeah, I know. And it's like, well, probably people don't even care. But you're not supposed to wear sleeveless things. You're not supposed to wear low cut things. And I do now. Not really, but it's like I've changed some. And you're not supposed to wear 2-piece bathing suits, and your shorts and your skirts aren't supposed to go like a couple inches above your knee. But part of that is because when you're older, you're supposed technically wearing these undergarment things, so you don't want those showing anyway, because that would really look silly. And the whole food thing, it's like and I hear that's changed because apparently the church now owns Coca-Cola. And it's like, you're not supposed to drink. Yeah, you weren't supposed to drink like anything with caffeine. So no Coke, no coffee, no hot tea. And I never drank coffee. I don't like it.
I hate coffee as well.
Yeah, I like the smell. I do not like the taste. But, my parents were not members.
I tried.
So I was around coffee all the time. I love tea, iced tea, hot tea. I'm a big tea person. And soda. I drink Diet Coke. But, you weren't supposed to drink anything caffeinated. And, oh my goodness. But I love Dr. Pepper and I love Coke. And I drink, Coke Zero and Diet Coke. So, because of the sugar. The sugar is more of a thing
I
for
like
me.
Diet Coke too.
Yeah, the sugar is more of a thing for me now than anything else. And let's see what else. There were other things. There was no meat restriction, but you were supposed to be eating, it was kind of like, besides the caffeine stuff, and no smoking, of course, and I've never smoked. But I don't want to anyway. My dad died of cancer because of smoking and drinking, so why would I want to go there? Why would I want to start that after I, no. But there's no, like, you can eat all the meats, and, it's basically the good part of, you're supposed to eat a healthy, balanced diet. Well, we're supposed to be doing that anyway. Am I great at that? No. But,
Yeah. I tried.
I love pizza. What can I say? I had a huge steak for my birthday last weekend. But I don't do that very often. You're supposed to pay 10% of your gross income for tithing. And I was really good at that for a long time. And there was, a glitch in there when I married my daughter's father, who was not a member. And then he started making me feel guilty. It's like, well, we could really use that extra 10%. I'm like, Anyway, but I have a lot of bookkeeping clients who are not Mormon, and they regularly believe in, because it's more like donating a portion of things that feed you spiritually. So even if you're not a member of a specific church, it's really a nice practice to set aside some money and then use it for charitable donations and things like that. And I have friends who do, clients who do that regularly. So I love the practice. Do I do it myself? No. But I do, I donate every now and then to different organizations. I love veterans organizations, and I love nature things. So I'm not opposed to.
You got to be careful though.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those places, like, it's like if you, for every $10 you donate, only $1 or $2 are actually going to the cause.
It goes to the administration.
Yeah,
you have to be careful.
And it's the same thing with when you're shopping at a grocery store or Target, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to donate, 82 cents and round up?"
Right.
And you feel good about it, but at the end of the day, Target uses that as a tax write-off. They don't really necessarily care about the actual donation, right?
Yeah.
And I've always been the skeptical person when it comes. Like, if I'm going to donate, I'll donate to what I truly believe in, and my company does a lot of different things. We've done baseball games with the Philadelphia Phillies with terminally ill children.
Oh, nice.
And we've done things like that.
Nice.
If I can see it and I'm there, it's a different story.
Right.
Well, I just don't trust some of these companies.
True.
I can't do it.
Yeah, that's good. And just, here's my little bookkeeping tip for everybody out there. It's like, if you're donating to a political organization, that is not tax deductible. So I thoroughly encourage people to donate politically with this election, especially if you're voting the way I am, but we're not going to go there. But it's not tax deductible, but do it anyway.
Politics are rough, especially now. It's very, we'll say it's a dynamic,
so
moving needle for
we
things.
Probably shouldn't go there, but you can probably imagine who I might be voting for. Anyway, other things about the church. It used to be, before the gas shortage in the, we'll just say 70s, because I forget. You'd have some kind of church meeting during the week, but the main church meetings were like on Sunday, and you would go to Sunday school in the morning, and then there was an afternoon, which was like going to regular church, where you'd have the songs and the normal sermon type things. And then with the gas shortage, whenever it was, they combined all that. So you went to like a 3-hour block of meetings on Sunday. And then in addition, and you still had some weekly things, but you also, you're supposed to be going to visit people and serve lots of service, which is great. I totally believe in serving. being a Mormon is a whole lifestyle. And
Yeah.
maybe more so than other churches, I don't know, but it's a total lifestyle. And you're busy a lot, especially if you're a leader that's kind of got a really, if you're higher up and you've got leadership, really busy leadership roles, you can be busy a lot. So you might not see your family much. But, so those are some of the main quirks that I can think of. I never went on a mission. Guys are supposed to go on a mission when they're 19. They serve for 2 years. Girls can go, but they have to wait till they're 21 because we really like you to get married first. So, but if you haven't gotten married, girls, by the time you're 21, sure, go on a mission. But you only get to go out for 18 months. Well, I was married by the time I was 20, so I didn't go on a mission. I didn't really want to anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, I knew someone was telling me up until pretty recent, this past couple of years, in order for you to get into a bar, because obviously they're not fans of alcohol in Utah, one, they had to serve food, whether it was snacks or something.
Okay.
But in order for you to get in, you had to pay a cover fee. So bars would have to charge you $5 to get in order for them to serve alcohol. It was like a whole weird thing. They don't do it anymore, apparently.
I was gonna say,
but I thought that was unique.
Yeah, I think it seems, well, maybe it's bars do that. I mean, I've seen that in California, but maybe that's when there's like a live performance happening and they'll charge a cover. But I remember the first time I got married, I got married in 1974. And, that only lasted not even quite a year, but we'll just say a year. My dad came to Utah on business to visit my husband and I at the time. And he was not a fan of my husband, but he was really not happy. My dad was a big drinker, and he was really not happy that, he couldn't get served alcohol at the restaurant we went to for dinner. And I think you almost, I don't even remember bars being there, but, you had to go into the state liquor store if you were going to buy anything. But yeah, my dad was not happy he couldn't have a drink with his dinner.
That's
but,
funny.
Then the marriage fell apart, so,
So what ultimately led you to leave? It just, you decided, hey,
it was
I need
just
a different
that,
change? Or?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it. I was a very active Mormon until I wasn't. And I met this guy in prison, and I really liked visiting him. And it's like, okay, do I want to go spend a half a day at church? Or do I want to spend more time with him? And he was so charming and wonderful, even though it was a prison. I wanted to go spend more time with him. And I went in and told my bishop, it's like, I can't do this church job anymore, and I'm going to start seeing this guy at the prison. And he just about, dropped his teeth. And it's like, what do you mean? I go, yeah, I know. Try to explain that to your minister. Number one, I'm not dating a Mormon, and number two, I'm leaving the church for him. Because he didn't ask me to leave the church. But it just felt like, oh, I don't need that church anymore. And it was not, and I still let, the visiting teacher people, I still let them come and I let them talk. And yes, if I was going to move, I asked them for help. So, I kind of, took what I needed. That's not a very, probably wasn't a very nice thing for me to do. But, when you're single on your own and you really don't have money to move from apartment to apartment, just call the Mormons. They'll help you move. So, sorry. I'm very irreverent these days.
Hey, listen, as we get older, I mean, I turned 38 2 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh.
But I feel like I'm an older, like I feel like I'm an old soul. Okay, so I just I still open doors for people. I say please. I say thank you. But you know what? People these days, man, like if I hold the door for you, I don't care if you're, a tall person, a girl, a man, whatever, a midget. I'm going to hold the door for you.
It's
and
just
sometimes
a nice
people
thing.
look at me like I'm crazy.
I know. I went on a couple dates with this guy, here. And before we ever met in person, we were talking on the phone. He goes, well, I'm going to hold the door open for you. I go, great. And he goes, I want to hold your hand when we're walking to the restaurant. Great. I'm fine.
Awesome.
It's like, I'm fine with that. Seat me, pull my chair up. I love all that. I want to be spoiled rotten by the guys I'm dating. That hasn't always been the case. But, I mean, I've always wanted that. But not, but I'm fine with people opening the door for me and pulling out my chair and helping me on with my coat, So I'm quite a bit older than 38, but I still.
It's okay, but it's a lost art,
It is, and I will open doors for guys. I'm at the doctor's office and leaving, and it's like I'm holding the door open for the men. And oh, thank you. I was like, I'll do it both ways. So I'll help you
or
out with your coat.
Or it's even like when you're driving. If someone puts on their turn signal and they go to get in front of you and you wave them on, and it's just the acknowledgement. It's this. If I see this, I'm content. But if I don't see a turn signal and someone cuts me off, that's when I get mad.
Yeah.
Or I get the finger and it's like, you cut me off, buddy. Like I didn't do anything. I'm here.
Wow.
But we're in the Northeast, so we got to deal with Jersey drivers and.
Okay, and I'm in the Northwest, but still,
there you go.
It's like I'm at the crosswalk and I'm still almost getting mowed down many times, and it's like, but I'll make eye contact with the drivers and they'll give me a little nod. It's like, okay, I'm going to wait for you. It's like, thank you, and I'm thanking all the people as they're sitting there waiting for me to cross the street because, Oregon doesn't always wait for the pedestrian.
Well, you know what? People anymore here in Philly, they don't care. They won't even look. They're just walking out. And if you hit them, you hit them. That's how it's like. You see it all the time on the news. It's like people get run over. It's like they don't care. They're just walking. They're looking at their phone. They're either not paying attention or they don't give a shit about what's around them. And they're like, all right, well, if you hit me, I'll just sue you. And it's well, if you're dead, it's kind of hard to do that.
And see, that's the thing. Part of because I try to walk every day as my exercise and my meditation. So I don't look at my phone. I have it for my steps. And yes, maybe if it dings, sometimes I turn the sound totally off, but sometimes it'll ding, and maybe if I'm expecting a call, I will look. But I am not walking. I don't even, no offense, I don't listen to podcasts when I'm walking. And I'm looking at the trees. I'm looking at everybody's dog and cat, and I'm talking to the birds, and it's like, I'm talking to the flowers.
In tune with nature.
And I'm in an urban area. I'm in a very pretty neighborhood in Portland, but it's all full of nature.
Okay.
And nature's 6 blocks away. There's a park called Forest Park, and it is a forest. So, I love it.
That's awesome. And look, I think more people, and I work in the senior market. So I always tell people when it comes to seniors, because I deal with people who are 70 and 80 years old. I always tell people, I even tell my dad this, and he's not a senior. I don't consider people in their 60s seniors, especially now.
I'm older than your dad. I just
He's 61.
Oh my gosh.
Or 60.
Okay.
He just turned 60, I think.
I just turned 70.
Wow, seriously?
Yes.
See, this is what I'm talking about. I think if you are getting older and you're outside, you need to get outside. You need to walk outside.
Yes.
You need to get your sunlight. And I think what happens is all too often people block themselves off inside and they don't get all the things. You need vitamin D to function.
Yes, but you also need a sun hat and sunscreen.
True.
Because I've had skin cancer much younger, and but I'm not going to go sunbathe because I've had skin cancer and I don't like. I mean, today it's almost 100 here today, but it's so I'm not going to go out in the hottest part of the day. But I do love to walk, and I'll wait till it cools down because I was out once earlier today, but I'll wait till it cools down and go for a walk when it gets dark, but before the weirdos come out. But
yeah.
But
my fiance, she had to get something cut off too, and
it's
so
not
now
fun.
we be careful when it comes to that. But
very good.
Let's get to the fun stuff.
Okay,
JoAnn. Let's talk aliens. I mean, this is why I wanted to have you on. Talk to me a little bit about your experience, or if there's a profound experience you had, and tell what do you think they are, and where did they come from? Because I know everyone has their own experiences and their own thoughts about both of these things, and I have my own, as well. So
I can't wait to hear that. I grew up again in the 50s, so you're watching B-rated Martian movies. It's like, okay, that's cool and that's scary, and then I never thought about
classics.
Yeah, and I, when I met husband number 7, and this was his and his dad's military career, they dealt with aliens and UFOs and treaty conferences on this planet and going out into space, flying for the military, that the secret space program that nobody knew about and nobody talked about, and I certainly didn't know about it. But I learned that there's hundreds of species of non-humans, and some of them originated on this planet, and many more have originated out in space. You've got friendly ones, you've got not friendly ones. You've got ones that want to be our friends and ones who want to take over or want to kidnap us to ship us off to other aliens who want to eat us or who want to use us for breeding purposes or just weird experiments. Some aliens come here for vacation. Some come here to explore and to study what's happening on this planet. You have numerous reptilian species. You have numerous cat species. There's a dog, at least one dog species I know of. There's insect species. There's humanoid-looking species. There's species that are like whales. And then there's ones that live in the ocean that some originated there, some came and liked it so much. If you've ever seen the movie Abyss, which I love.
I think.
It's old.
When did that come out?
I would say the 80s, probably the 90s. And so it's like scientists going down in this deep submersible, and this one guy gets out of the craft, and he gets disconnected from the vessel, but he comes upon this underwater species that lives really deep in the ocean, and it's almost like, if they're not human looking, but they look like a jellyfish, but like a person. But so like you can kind of see through them, and there's beautiful lights, and there's a species that's like that. But when they want to come onto land, they have to like take over a body that just drowned. But there's some really cool species. There's some cat species that I would love to meet, and they're from space. One is a really tall one that's like 9 feet tall, and they have like, if they stretch out their arms, there's like skin, so they become wings, so they can fly, they can sing, they can communicate telepathically, they can do the Spock mind meld thingy. But they're really cool, and they're friendly, and my ex-husband met them when he was on a space mission in 1979 and brought a couple of them back here. So now some of them hang out at an alien embassy in the southern hemisphere, off of South America. Yeah. And there's another cat species, there's another cat species that looks like a black panther, and they're really tall when they stand up, and they like to walk on just 2 feet. They have kittens, so there's nothing human about them, but they can talk, and I don't know exactly where they're from, but some of their scientists and things, archaeologists, will come and explore the planet and study it. So I know they've been visiting here for a long time, and this one in particular, she, especially in the like maybe 80s and 90s, she was tasked with doing archaeological digs to find where on the planet Earth that her species might have visited. She's really cool. There's a dog species, a hound dog species, that in 1961 they were allowed to set up a base in Australia, and they're just merchants. So they like to.
That's wild.
They're really cool. Obviously, I've never seen any of these, but I do believe strongly that they're real, and they have been visiting the planet for thousands of years. They have some really good medical experience, but right now their thing is they're exporters. They buy up and export bling and chocolate and scarves and silks and commodities that the aliens want, and they ship it out to space. They've got a huge fleet of stuff that's like, the 18, you see the 18-wheelers on the road, and it's like they just transport stuff out into space. It's really cool. And they don't transport kidnapped humans. They refuse to do that, but they do defend themselves if there's pirates trying to get their stuff. So they're really cool. My favorite, the one I know the most about, and there are some insectoids ones. There's like a huge beetle-like one that, because depends on, like, if you're the queen, you're really big, like a big truck. Yeah. If you're a warrior, you might be a pickup truck size. If you're just a nobody, you're maybe like the size of a VW bug. And they're really cool because they can spit hot plasma at you to defend themselves. I know. It's just like, I love these descriptions. And they're friendly towards us. And there's little tiny insects that came here to the planet because their homeworld was imploding and dying, and they were tricked by another species to think, oh, Earth, nobody lives there, so you go there, because they have cloaking, the ability to cloak themselves, and that's what this other species wanted. But again, my ex had like a first contact with them when they landed here and their mothership crashed. But they've set up bases, so there's millions of them because they're insects, and they look like those water bear things that we've sent off like to the moon and to the space to see how they would react in that kind of environment. But they're really cool. But they have little weapons, and they help fight, defend us. They help us when we need it. But so it doesn't, the size, it can be tiny and big. They all have their function, and they can be so cool. The one I've talked about the most, because I used to speak at UFO conferences. If you've seen the movie Jurassic World, I like them better than Jurassic Park, because you've got the cool velociraptor who's being trained by that cute blonde guy who just happens to look like my ex-husband, and who used to actually train with them, like riding his motorcycle through whatever, the meadow, the forest, while they're running to train. And that really happened. He has a bomber jacket that I used to have, but we split up, so I had to leave it at the house. I had to leave it with all his crap. But the Raptors, they have this vast empire, and they're run by a female. They have an Empress at the head of their empire. They originated here on Earth. They left millions of years ago to colonize space. Didn't realize that, there was a asteroid 65 million years ago which pretty much destroyed everything, but remnants of them were on the moon and on Mars and underground. So some of them survived, or some of them changed or kind of morphed into, not morphed, but their cousin has become more humanoid. But they have this vast empire out in space. They're environmentally friendly people. I call them people because I just love them. This is their home world. They will not do anything that is going to destroy this planet. If they need something that's manufactured, all their bases are underground, but if they need something to be manufactured, they do it off planet and then bring it here. They borrow technology from other species. They're really good military strategy people. They have, just like in the movie, they have really sharp kill claws, so if you've irritated them or you're their enemy, they can gut you in a second. And they used to eat humans as a regular thing, but in 1952, when their Empress then decided, well, we need to try and be friendly with the humans, or at least this branch of the humans, so they came to Earth and actually met. They landed, some of them landed where my father-in-law was stationed in Northern California, and it's like, it's a Sunday afternoon, and all of a sudden there's 8 UFOs flying towards the airbase, and everybody's at the pool, and all the women and the men have to go down and get in their jets, and the women are just going, and the base commander's going, okay, ladies, we don't see this. We're never talking about this. We'll just wait for the men to come back. And then they did, and this one Raptor who became very close to my father-in-law and my ex, he's an ambassador for them because his mom is the Empress, and he spends days teaching these people. Okay, well the Greys told you this, but that's not really true, and started teaching him a lot about space, the realities of space and things. And by then, the military was already having flying saucer type craft being built for them. So that was pretty cool. But this species, so they've been our ally since 1952, and they do help our military and maybe other friendly militaries around the world that we're allies with, and they will help defend the planet. So if another negative species is working with, let's just say Putin, for example, just invading Ukraine, and they're helping them. Okay, well, our Raptor friends might be helping the side that's helping the Ukrainians. So I'll just put that out there because hopefully that happened. But on the other hand, if it gets to the point where it's a massive nuclear war and we're all about to die because we can't be nice to each other, they'll just gas the planet and kill us all so that the planet survives. But they're highly educated, and they love art, and they are very family oriented, and they'll put on 8-hour operas about a historical thing or that great hero who just came back from a battle. And I've obviously never heard their operas, but I hear they're very dramatic. They do prefer eating live food. So when my father-in-law, when my ex first saw them when he was a little boy at one of these conferences, it's like, okay, we're gonna have them eat outside because they're gonna eat those deer or those sheep alive, and we're going to stay in the dining room and eat our cooked food because it's pretty nasty if you've never seen a dinosaur doing that. And they still look like dinosaurs. But, they're beautiful, and they have colored leather, and they're just amazing creatures. And, unlike some children on this planet who are not very well disciplined, they discipline I'm being kind. They discipline their children, but they also love their children, and they want, they grow up. It's like you might be in the military, you might be a politician, you might be an artist. They write poetry, and they have witches, and they have their own fairies. And so here's a lovely connection, because here's human witches and fairies that originated on this planet, and this alien species also has their own witches and their own fairies, because a lot of times, even if you're from off planet, you might have your own fairies that come with you and help translate. But I also believe that especially the British witches got a lot of their information from off planet, because the magic is really just science and it's natural law. So it's not weird. I mean, you may not understand it, but that doesn't mean it's not real and it's not effective, and you can't do things with that.
Yeah.
But
I'd imagine anything that, it's very similar to, like, if we saw very advanced technology now, we would think it's magic, right? If you could teleport or whatever.
Right.
But if I showed a cell phone that I have right now to somebody even 45 years ago, they would think it's magic, because computers took up entire rooms of a building.
And I remember those original cell phones, this giant brick thing that you carried around. It's like, oh my gosh.
My first was a Nokia, okay? So, I mean, it was a brick, but it wasn't like an 80s brick.
Right. Well, I'm older.
Same concept, right? I mean, it's
and you had to be rich to own the original ones. You had to be rich. It's like, oh, he's a lawyer. They've got one. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, especially if you have one in your car, right?
Yes. Well, I finally got one because I was traveling to go talk on late night radio shows before there was all this internet stuff, and yeah, it was pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, I love the Raptors, and I tell, and so part of my point is, one of my spirit guides is a Raptor sorceress. Have I met her in person? No. Is she alive? Yes. She's still living, and she lives somewhere. I don't know exactly where. I know the country, but, and so she sits around in this castle with other Raptor sorceress, and they're knitting and drinking, and it's like, could you just come to tea? But I've also, when I spoke at UFO conferences, I always close my talks with this really touching quote by one of their senators about how infinite the universe is and how everything's connected, and it's just so marvelous and wonderful. And she's like right here by this is my right shoulder. Okay, so she's like right here, and like burning hot. And it's like, because her energy is so strong. And I remember, and my father-in-law's always off my left shoulder, and the fairies or angels are like behind me. And it's like, it is so incredible to feel that when you're giving a talk about stuff that a lot of people are not going to believe anything you're saying. But hopefully some people, because you're at a UFO conference, they will believe you. But I was at one of them, and after I got done talking, 3 psychics came up to me, and this one goes, I never have believed any of your talks. I go, I know, I watch you every time, roll your eyes at me. But he and these 2 ladies, it's like, but when you started giving that quote, we saw who was behind you. I go, yeah, cool, because I felt it. But they could see the raptor, they could see this angelic spirit energy behind me, and that was fabulous, because most people don't come up and tell me that they're seeing that. But, when you have 3 psychics tell you that, is pretty cool.
So from a language perspective, I mean, how is that handled? So is it, obviously if it's telepathic, is it just like sci-fi stuff that you listen to it in your own language, or?
Well, some of it is telepathic. Some of it you're using the elementals or the fairies to translate for you. If they've got their fairies and you've got your fairies, they're talking to each other and telling each other what you're saying. A lot of species will use the grays to translate for them. And then the raptors, for example, if they're elite enough, they can have an operation on their voice boxes so that they can speak human languages. And so the one that came to the planet in 1952, he could speak at least 12, he could speak lots of human languages. And they like German a lot because it's very guttural like their languages. And my ex,
Makes sense.
he could speak Raptor. So I've heard him speak. He's spoken Raptor to me a few times. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. What did you just say? And but it's very interesting. And I've heard my spirit guide, because I often work with a channeling medium. She came through one time so that I could hear her voice, and so she could tell me what her name was. Not that I could understand what she was saying, so the channeling person had to translate it for her. But at least her voice was coming through his body. So it's like, yeah, that's Raptor, and that was pretty cool. So
you mentioned the grays. What is a gray?
Oh, I'm sorry. So typically, most people, when they think of an alien, they think of a short little creature with a big bulby head with black eyes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're green, but grays come in different sizes and there's different colors. I think there's gray, and there's maybe brown, there's blue. Some are friendly, some are not. Some will work with us, some work with the ones that do all the kidnapping type things. That's kind of, they're hired, I think. And they're very sterile beings, so they can work with a lot of different species, because all the aliens, and we should be worried about germs, but a lot of the aliens are all worried about germs, because there's a lot of germs here on this planet, and that could make them, human germs could make them very sick, and they're not, they don't necessarily know how to deal with that. So you have that, and then there's, the ones that are from the ocean. I know the one in particular, well, there's a couple of them that my ex has met. They have their own languages, and if you're working with the aliens, then you learn how to, you learn how to communicate if you're smart. If you're a good military person, you learn how to communicate. And even when there was a couple of big interstellar treaty conferences here on the planet, 61 and 71, and like the 71 one, it was held in Iran, so the Shah of Iran had to learn how to say hello in about 200 different alien languages. Now, he would not have been able to carry on a conversation, but at least, you're a good diplomat. You learn how to say at least hello, maybe how are you, in that person's language. That's the right thing to do. I'm sure the president of our country has to do the same thing, unless they just expect everybody to speak English, which, they shouldn't, but they probably, other heads of state probably do all speak English, but, it's the polite thing to do, to say hello, at least in their language, I think, what do I know?
So you talk a lot about fairies.
I do.
Can you kind of talk about what is an actual fairy? How do they exist? What is their place in this world? Because I obviously you mentioned them a couple times when I was reading a lot of stuff that you were talking about. They came up a lot. So I will say this: we just saw the M. Night Shyamalan, his daughter, her movie about fairies.
She has a movie about fairies?
Oh, okay? So if you didn't see this, it's called The Watch. I think it's called The Watchers.
Oh, I never saw it. Was it a horror film?
And it's a horror film, kind of.
Okay, that's why I never saw it.
But it's very alien-esque.
Okay.
You might like it. So
Okay.
it's a horror film to a certain degree, but they're clearly alien beings.
Oh, cool.
And they take on the shape of other people, or they can sound like other people, and it was a unique movie. It's not something I would have ever envisioned for a fairy.
Well, and there are alien species that do shapeshift and do take on other people or rocks or buildings. They're not very nice, and they just want to consume whatever they're taking over. Or yes,
you should watch this. I think you'd like it.
Okay.
I feel like you'd like it.
I wrote it down. So fairies, the elementals is the umbrella term. So you've got fairies, brownies, sprites, gnomes, trolls. That's most of the ones that I know of. They can all look different. They don't all. They're energy beings. They can take corporeal form, and a great there's a lot of people who've done books on it. But Brian Froud, Froud, was a really good artist for different kinds of fairies. So if it's a little wood elemental, he might look like sticks to you. But sometimes they will look in corporeal form. They might look how they think you want them to look. They are generally energy beings, the ones that are from this planet. again, like the Raptors, this is their mother world. They love this planet. So when we keep screwing it up time after time by destroying the environment, they're not happy with us. But you can make friends with them. Mostly they stay as energy beings. So like if you're taking pictures, they'll just show up like as an orb flitting about the room or filling the room. They can be very helpful. They can be mischievous. I've had some push me up or down the stairs when they just want to be funny and laugh at me. And they might make things go missing. And when I ask nicely or give them more treats, oh, look at that piece of paper is just magically pulled out a corner. Oh, that's what I was looking for. And I've looked through this pile 5 times. Or my keys. Now I leave my keys in one spot, but sometimes it's like the keys are moved. It's like, where are they? But it's interesting. When I moved into his house in California, this number 7, because he grew up with all this stuff, okay, here, JoAnn, here's a map of where everybody lives in and out of the house. Here's whether they're a brownie, a sprite, what kind of elemental they are. Here's their names. Now, I couldn't remember them all, and I knew where they lived, but I couldn't remember their names because they're not always easy to but there's a main fairy that runs the garden. There's a main one that runs the house. And I also, it's a common practice to leave them treats. They love treats of many kinds, but mine loves...
Don't we all?
Yes. Sweets, bread. I mean, tonight is Lamas. Today is Lamas. It's the beginning of the harvest season. It's a witchy Sabbat. So, I will put a bread product out for my fairies so they can have a little snack. But, my fairies have different bedrooms. I have two little structures where there's a bedroom here and a bedroom over there that they have their bedrooms. But at my other house, we had little houses for them, we had beds for them, all kinds of stuff. But it's important to acknowledge them and to thank them for being there, because then they will help you. But they like, I put treats out at least on the new moon, the full moon, and when there's a special holiday, or when there's on the witchy calendar where there's a special day, those kind of things. And, they're just part of my magical life, and I acknowledge them as if they're people. To me, they are people. And I've actually seen them. Once I was watering in the garden, and all of a sudden there's this little girl flying off. It's like, that's not a butterfly. Those are human legs. It's like, well, that's pretty cool. And another time, and I wasn't drunk. I had been drinking a little, but I wasn't drunk because I never get drunk. Before I really moved into that house, I'm sitting there in the wee hours of the morning with a psychic friend, and all of a sudden, this bush over here, which I know is a palm bush, but all of a sudden it looked more like a hedge type of shrub, and the most beautiful face, just like, And it was the queen fairy that lived in the garden, and it's like, oh my gosh, they're real. This is so real. And
that's cool.
It is so cool. And another time, before I moved up here, I was sitting at my desk, and I had security cameras by then. And sometimes on the security camera, I could just see them, flying back and forth out in the yard, which was actually the front door was on the back side of the house, but I could see them flitting about. But this one time, it's like, oh, it's changing into a little person, or corporeal. It's like, oh, I'm going to run up there and see, but they knew I was coming, so they, flitted back into energy. But they're so magical. And when you can see them or feel them, I could see the shadow out of the corner of my eye. My psychic friends can see them, but I know they're there. And even when I used to go to England to go speak at conferences, I would take some of the ones from my house in California and go, okay, now, and they would meet new friends, or they'd meet old friends. These things are usually hundreds of years old. So, they love to travel when I was going to these fun places and go meet new fairies friends, or see old friends that they hadn't seen in, a long time, because they'd been in the United States for a long time. But, it's just another... If, like the raptors for me, it's just another species. It's another being to honor and have them support me. And, I want to take care of this planet for them. And they're very cool. So, but, don't piss them off. You might have a flood. It might rain so hard it floods. So what can I say? It's like, you don't want to piss them off.
So you talk about studying witchcraft and doing that stuff.
I do.
Talk a little bit about that, because obviously people think of the movies, right? And everything we're talking about is very similar to that, right? When you think of aliens, you think of Independence Day and Mars attacks. You're not really thinking of a practicality thing. And I think a lot of that comes from movies saying, oh, if you put it out in plain sight, people aren't going to believe it, right?
Right.
Talk a little bit about the witchcraft aspect. And I'll tell you this, we're really excited. Part of the bucket list of mine as I get older, I always wanted to go to Salem, Massachusetts.
I haven't been
there. We made a trip, so in September. It's not October. We wanted to do that, but it was insane. And I talked to a lot of people, and they're like, just go in September. It's just as fun, and it's not as crazy. So
When
in
are you
September,
going?
I'm going Friday the 13th.
Oh.
And that whole weekend and the Monday, and we're gonna drive up because we're in Philadelphia, so it's
Right.
only about a 4.5 hour drive, and we're gonna go check out the sites. I booked this hotel right in basically downtown.
Cool.
So we're gonna check out the witch trials, and I love the history and things like that. So we're excited we're gonna go talk to some psychics, and
Cool.
it'll be cool, but it's
Cool.
it's something I've always wanted to do, and something wifey always wanted to do. And
Oh, good.
we said,
Good.
screw it. You only live once. Let's go.
Well, and the week after that is fall equinox, so you'll be there close to the fall equinox. That's a very special day. And
Ooh,
see,
I
that
like
time of year is like the beginning of the witchy calendar. We call like the solstice, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is the New Year's for the witches. Either that or Halloween is it. It might be Halloween. Is like the New Year's for the witches. Anyway, for me, again, like I said, witchcraft is just science. It's not using natural law. And yes, I have a wand. Yes, I have crystals. I have lots of little tools. I have a pendulum I use sometimes when I'm trying to divine something. Have I ever used my wand for a spell? No. My spell casting is more like, and mine is all positive. I know other people can go to the dark side, and sometimes I feel like I might want to, but I don't.
Don't we all?
I know. But it's like, for me, it's like you're setting intentions, and it's a lot for me. It's like setting intentions in a certain way. And there's sometimes you can write becomes magical. My writing practices have become very magical, and doing meditations and really concentrating on what you want and being grateful. Sometimes people, and here's one thing I've learned. I've read a lot of historical novels about witchcraft and things, which are based on probably a lot of people's family histories. Most of the witches that were probably burned back in this country and other countries, it was like they were women who practiced herbal arts and healed naturally. It wasn't that they were doing some evil spell on somebody, but it's all about using natural things and creating your best life, doing these other things. I have a friend who wrote a cookbook about cooking as a way of doing magic, and how you use certain spices to get, like maybe you want love in your life and you use this kind of spice and you stir the thing this way, or so there's ways to infuse herbs and spices and crystal, it's all about energy as far as I'm concerned. It's energy and honoring Mother Nature, because that's all it is. It's honoring Mother Nature, and she will provide, or the universe, whatever you want to call it. So it's become an important part of my life, and it's really helped me create a much better life for myself. So
I'll tell you, I had a profound psychic experience.
Cool.
That fucked me up a little bit, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I've seen psychics throughout my life because I believe in that.
Me too.
And I like tarot and
Cool.
this, that. My wifey, she'll read our cards here and there.
All right.
She's got some of it. Her mom used to do that for us, and also she had her jewels. I'll never forget. She was breaking the jewels out, and she's like, see a lot of fertility jewels here, and I'm like, stones. And I'm like, I'm 23. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But this experience with the psychic, it freaked me out because she told me, and my dad, and I'll talk a little. So my dad recently, he lost his wife of 23 years in January.
Sorry.
He's suffering with like really bad depression. He was recently diagnosed with degenerative arthritis in his back and his hip. He's gonna need a hip replacement, and I told you he's only 60. I consider that young.
It is young.
And you know, I've had some crazy things happen to me in this span of things, and this psychic told me your family is cursed.
Oh.
And someone set a curse on you, your family lineage, a very long time ago, and it's just kind of carrying on. And she wanted me to do all these rituals that, of course, I didn't follow through with because I was, 24, and I'm like, I'm not bathing in, sugar water and all this crazy stuff. But it was wild because I saw another psychic a couple years later, and she's like, you saw somebody. Like, she could feel that I had already talked to somebody years ago, but she's the only one that said you have a curse in your lineage. And I thought that was pretty wild because I've always had bad luck, and my dad's always had bad luck. It recently hasn't been terrible. I can't complain with my life, but things happen. I'm like, man, what the fuck? How does this happen? And I just kind of go back and I think, am I cursed? And is that something you can break out of? And the answer is I don't know.
Well, may I offer my opinion?
Yeah, hit me.
Okay. My newer book is I'm interviewing my mom and my dead grandma, so everybody's dead. And it's like part of it is like family history, part of it is like, well, how did you stand up as women, and how were you allowed to use your voice, and what messages do you have? But the overarching theme besides female empowerment also is breaking any patterns, or because you can change going forward. You can break patterns if there's certain patterns that have followed your family lineage. So I'm wondering if maybe you go to a different psychic or whatever, maybe somebody can help, maybe they can, or it's like maybe somebody else has a piece of information on maybe specifically what that is, or maybe you might do something, even journaling, like, I am grateful for this, or thank you that we feel safe and protected, or do something, set an intention, you and your wife, or whatever, you yourself, set an intention and just write about it, and maybe that will help. But I do think, if we do some work on it, that you can maybe break some of the patterns, or
I've always been a pessimist in my life. I'll tell you that. So, but a couple years
the
ago,
other way.
a couple years ago, I tried to change. I am a proponent of change. I'm a Cancer, so yes, I'm a hermit. I do enjoy not necessarily going out all the time, and I like to play video games because it relieves my stress, and I like to be at home watching movies and hanging out. And my wifey's a Sagittarius, so that's the polar opposite.
She's a party. No, I mean, not a party girl, but they like to go out and they like to be social.
Yes. So me and her over the years, we've got this interesting dynamic. However, my rising and my moon are both Sagittarius. I know that. So.
Okay.
As a Cancer, I know that's a little unique. So we, based on my time of birth and all that, right?
Yeah.
So I know that I think is the reason why me and her gel really well, because she's fire and I'm water, and we're technically not supposed to. And I've learned this throughout the way because that's how she's taught me all that.
Cool.
But a couple years ago, I said to myself, I'm gonna wake up and look, I'm still I feel like I'm an old man. But sometimes I get up and I'm just irritated because I have to go to work and I work in an office, and it is what it is, and that's life, right? But I do appreciate everything I have a lot more now than I did a couple years. A couple years ago, I'd wake up and I'd think of all the negative things that I could focus on, right? It's like, I'm not making enough money, I'm not doing this, I could be doing this, but I have all these great things. I have a wonderful fiance. I have my puppies who I love. I have a great job. I mean, most people would kill for my job. And I get to podcast, and I get to do unique things, and I get to travel. So a couple years ago, I said to myself, all right, you got to be more positive in your mindset. And I think since I've done that bad luck has not really, I mean, it's still it's weird. It's like it's dabbles, but it's not like it used to be, where it would be like a windfall of just bad shit that happens to me, and it's really hard to explain. But since I've changed that mindset, and I'm still guilty of being negative because I don't know if it's just in my mindset or not, but I have changed to a certain degree where I try to look at the positive of a lot of things, and it has helped.
Good. And I will say mindset is everything, and also what you focus on is what you attract. So
yeah.
And I've got a couple of great examples. So like the last piece of my ex, we've been divorced over a year, but he's got this house in California, which I have no part of because he inherited it. It was not community property. But I paid for his house and all the expenses and all the big stuff, and it's a really old house and falling apart, blah, blah, blah. So his trust owes me a lot of money. And I've been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, waiting. Well, now, it's like, I've done my spell work on this. Not casting an evil spell against him because, whatever. The world is going to take care of him. But I've done my spell work on, how grateful I am and how wonderful it's going to feel that I will not be so basically, in a nutshell, it's like so that I will feel relieved from getting out from under all my debt that was caused by having to pay for all his crap. And I've been working that intention for months. Well, we're almost there because the house has been transferred to a nonprofit who's going to sell it, and I have a promissory note on my refrigerator, and I'm going to get my money. I believe
that's
that.
awesome.
I know. The other thing is, it's like, okay, I've been married 7 times. Okay, great. Do I still believe that I deserve a really absolutely fantastic partner in my life? You betcha.
I was going to say, you damn right you do.
My daughter says, you're not dead yet, Mom. I go, no, I am not. And, I've dated...
70 is the new 50.
I know.
Okay, JoAnn?
I know. Considering my daughter's in her late 40s, so it better be. But
I have more gray hair than you do, and I'm 38.
Well, here's the thing. I've been on dating apps for, the better part of a year, or, like since last fall. It's like, ooh, 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 ooh. We have this good connection now. Ooh. And it's like, and then I kept saying, okay, nobody's really going to show up. And I'm amazed I'm saying this on a podcast. But okay, nobody's really going to show up until I launch my book, which launched on June 25th.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you. 2 days later, this guy shows up in my dating app, and he wasn't on for very long. And it's like, hi. I go, hi. And we've developed this wonderful, wonderful relationship. He's working overseas, so he's coming back to the United States pretty soon. And we've developed this amazing relationship. And it's like, okay, dude, I have a list. I have the list of what I have to have in my relationship. It's like, okay. It's like, but like we're so in sync, it's like it's like, because
2 peas in a pod.
Yes. and we're in sync spiritually and service, or, it's like all these things that I know I want, but it's like, okay, well, he's got some of that. No, he's not. No, he's too weird. No. But I made the list. I set my intentions for what I want, and I might be getting it. I'm pretty sure I'm getting it.
That is amazing. So let's end here. I know we didn't get into ghosts, which was my next topic, I wanted to get into it. But
next show.
Next time when after you're really famous after your book. But I always have to ask spiritual people, spiritual beings. And I've asked this question many times on my podcast because I myself don't know, but I'm very intrigued. Obviously, you've had ghost experiences. You've dealt with them. What do you think happens when we pass? When our physical bodies are gone, what happens to us?
Well, we have a spirit. I do believe in that. I think the spirit has been eternal. To me, the spirit world is just this next dimension over here. So, the Mormons teach something totally different. I know our spirit, we transition, we leave our body. I don't know, we don't go to a physical place, but, we go to this place. And there are other spirits who will help us transition, because you've got to kind of get used to being dead. And I know there's spirits who, okay, well, I was in the military, I died in the military, so this guy's going to help me get used to being dead. And maybe this person helps children. And, so there's people there to help you. And I mean, I talk to it through a channeling medium every 2 weeks. I wouldn't say it's therapy session, but sometimes it is. But, I've been able to talk to my loved ones and to new friends and to really good teachers. And Jesus is just fishing. He's just having fun, and there's no big God sitting on a throne anywhere. It's this loving, energetic presence. But to me, the spirit world, and the Mormon Church teaches you the spirit world is like all around you, but again, it's not a place. But, it's right there, because I've felt that dead person standing right next to me.
Yeah.
And she was so happy that I was at her funeral.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've talked to my mom.
Sorry.
Yeah, and you can feel the energy. So
from and let's end with this, because I do think it's important for my young listeners and just people who are trying to get more in tune. Is there any tips you can give people to be more in tune to their psychic side, to their to that other side that obviously media and things like that think is crazy or think is not realistic? Is there anything we can do as humans to tap into that a little bit more?
I've done a couple of things. I have taken classes to help practice and learn how to tap into some of the intuition and stuff. So there are classes on, psychic development and stuff, and meditation helps, and just getting used to listening to that inner intuitive voice, and throw out the notion that it's stupid and crazy, and no, I'm not really hearing that. And it just,
I have bad intuition. It
takes
just hits
time.
me like a ton of bricks.
Does it hit you physically?
Yeah, I feel like my intuition will sometimes tell me hey, you need it, you should do this, and I got to tell you, I tend to not listen to it, and I always kick myself.
Well, that's
I don't
maybe
know.
why you have
I'm an
the bad
overthinker.
luck. Yeah, don't overthink it.
I'm an overthinker.
Don't overthink it. But it does take practice, but know that it's real. And again, unplug from your devices. You gotta settle. I mean, even if you just sit and have some meditative time. And
gotta do it.
Yeah.
You got to do it. Well, listen, it was, we went longer than I normally go because I'm obsessed with these topics.
Me too.
So I really appreciate you jumping on the show. To benefit you, where can everybody find your content? If you got anything else going on in the near future, let us know.
Sure. My website is just my name, JoAnnFawcett.com. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, just all under my name. I have the 2 books. They're all on Amazon and everywhere else. And I'm open to answering people's emails, all kinds of stuff. I'm very reachable, and I do respond, and I love to talk to people. So my next big project is doing some more stuff with helping heal the people in their sucky relationships, and also I'm working on this book about talking to my grandmas. So they have stuff to say. I was told in a reading that I needed to talk for my grandmas, so my ancestors. So I'm making that happen.
That is awesome. That's awesome. Well, look, I will buy your books. You know,
Thank you.
If you ever are going to do an audiobook, you let me know. I love audiobooks.
Okay.
It's what I do when I drive to work.
Oh, cool.
I zone out. So my podcast is Drink O'Clock Pod on all socials. Drink O'Clock on everywhere you listen to podcasts. And we'll get this episode up probably in a week or 2.
Great. And I'll post it for you.
So you're amazing. So thank you so much for hanging out.
Thank
and
you.
You have a great night.
You too.
Thanks, Joanne.
Sure.
On a stormy night where legends unfold, there's a podcast that's breaking the mold. Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh! Grab an old-fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink Club Podcast, we're ready for more. We're ready for more. With a mix of folklore and rebel cheer here, we'll guide you through tales of whiskey and beer. From Irish shores to lands afar, grab your friends, it's time to raise the